Hello, everyone, and welcome back from the break. Thank you so much for the incredible engagement and participation so far. Please do continue to submit your questions through the Q&A section and continue to engage in our chat. It's great to see the comments coming in through there and the conversations happening. So this is going to be our third and final session for today. We still have one more day left tomorrow where we'll have another 3 sessions. But in this session, we are excited to welcome back Joe Fagan to moderate a conversation between 2 distinguished procurement leaders on the topic of global procurement partnership and the global procurement database. For those of you who are joining us for the first time today, Mr. Fagan is an international consultant specializing in the development and implementation of EGP systems. Mr. Fagan has been providing advisory services through the ADB and World Bank to governments and donor organizations in Canada, Asia, and South America to assist them with their efforts in the development and implementation of electronic procurement systems. Mr. Fagan was one of the contributing authors of the ADB EGP Handbook and the World Bank Global Public Procurement Stock Taking Initiative. As with all of our sessions, as a reminder again, as always, if you have any questions or comments, use the Q&A feature found just below in the Zoom application, and Joe and the rest of the panel will do their best to get to as many of those questions as possible. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Joe Fagan so that he can introduce our speakers.
Thank you, Roger. Welcome back for, I guess, session number 6, where we're going to be learning of the Global Public Procurement Partnership and initiatives being conducted by the World Bank and their global partners. Like the ADB, using the Asia Pacific Public Procurement Network to share information and knowledge on public procurement. Through different initiatives like this conference, the World Bank is also engaged in sharing public procurement information with their member countries through their global initiatives. Today, we're going to hear about 2 of those initiatives, the Global Public Procurement Stock Taking Initiative and the Global Public Procurement Database, which was actually just launched earlier this year. Both of these initiatives are to share information on public procurement, not just EGP information, policies and regulations and practice guiding public procurement. And to help us here today and bring these initiatives to us, we have 2 friends and colleagues from the World Bank, Hunt Lakashia and Masoud Mozamel. Hunt is a senior procurement specialist in the global governance procurement practice at World Bank. And you heard from him yesterday with his activity in Nigeria. Hunt in Washington, though he's currently hiding in another weather and to avoid the that's probably going on back home. So he's been, as mentioned before, he's been involved in many aspects of the electronic initiatives for EGP, like across the globe for the bank on everything electronic, including the database that we'll hear about today. And also with us is Masoud, another senior external affairs officer at the World Bank based in Washington, elected to stay in Washington to observe the election chaos. And Masoud has been providing advisory services and supports the development partners on strategic communication, stakeholder engagement, innovation, new media concept, tools and to multiply and support the development impact. Though hard to tell from his youthful looks, Masoud has been advising governments for over 20 years, leading initiatives and managed project components related to poverty reduction, financial sector reforms, governance, transparency, accountability, and so on. Currently, he's leading the initiative to establish the Global Public Procurement Partnership as part of the World Bank's collaboration with governments and development partners and a range of stakeholders. And he'll be presenting the Public Partnership Initiative and the stock taking that's going on. And that project just started a few months ago, like earlier this year as well. And as part of full disclosure and transparency, I probably should mention that I and taken part in that to working with Masood on that, along with a few other esteemed colleagues from around the world that are part of that project as well. Now, we'll be getting to our presentations with Masood on the partnership and Hunt on the data. And then we'll have a panel discussion at the end to answer any questions you may have and to share additional information. We'll also be having some polling going on during this session. We can just show a sample of the first poll to come up now before into the presentations, and they'll just occur along, and then we'll address them between speakers as well as at the end with Masood. So without any further ado, we'll let Masood take over with the first presentation. Thank you. Masood, you'd probably, there you go, unmuted.
Thank you, Joe, for the introduction. I'm just trying to share my screen so that you can see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, your screen share the show mode.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
The view show, slideshow, and then.
Yeah, I can. I just having.
No, go to slideshow. Over to the right a little bit. Right
slideshow, and then from the beginning. There you go.
Yeah, it was having some problem.
Perfect.
Anyway, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for inviting me to share some work that we are doing at the World Bank to inform the formation of a global procurement partnership. As Joe mentioned, that we are currently undertaking a global stock take of development in public procurement. My presentation will be basically having two segments. One is the global procurement partnership, which we are working on right now, and then the global stock take of development in public procurement, which the study that we are undertaking currently to inform this partnership. But before going into the discussion, just wanted to have a quick aside. Procurement is in the news, as you know, with the Nobel Prize winners this year. So it is an important topic, and plus with all this pandemic and crisis that we are facing all over the world, procurement has become one of the major areas of discussion globally. So I'll just focus on a little bit on what we are thinking of putting this global platform together for global procurement partnership. And then to actually discuss that, we wanted to ask three questions. One is what drives the need for a global procurement partnership? How might a GPP or benefit stakeholders? And how do we move from a global platform that is responsive and capability? So just to give you a context, the landscape of procurement globally is changing, and the economic magnitude and impact of this public procurement globally is approximated at around $11 billion, which is almost 13% of global GDP. So you can imagine the enormous role that public procurement plays globally. And as I mentioned, that COVID experience is a big experience for us across in all the countries where procurement has become a big element of addressing the challenges and emergencies of the pandemic. So given this context, a lot of stakeholders globally for a while actually kind of having this interest to set up a mechanism that can actually help promote this public procurement space as a global public good. What does it mean for us? Basically, we look at some two main contribution or consequence of this. One is the focus on value for money and fit for purpose, as we all know as public procurement process and function addresses. And then the other big issue, which is the need for integrating technology for better service delivery, which I believe is one of the key areas that we are discussing today. So what drives the need for a GPP? There are several ways of looking at it, but some of the key points or key areas that we think this global procurement partnership can contribute in the public procurement space globally would be to modernize and strengthen the procurement function, help professionalize the procurement practice globally, and also build the procurement standards, assessment methodology, performance evaluation, research, and coordinated response to global emergencies. So for now, these are some of the proposed key objectives that we have for this global procurement partnership. That includes basically promotion of governance, standardization, and professionalization of procurement system and process. Also exploring tools and technology, especially given the cutting edge new technologies and approaches such as data analytics. And in this process, this proposed GPP can bring in policymakers, purchasers, suppliers, and other stakeholders in this space. And finally, which is another big area actually where there is a huge need in public procurement globally, is the creation and sharing of knowledge, building new knowledge, also doing research and analysis, and also coordinating and networking globally, so that all of us can help each other and actually share knowledge across the globe. So the way we are looking at it currently, with some short-term contribution that DPP can facilitate, and I already mentioned the objective, basically immediate kind of short-term, we can focus on engaging different stakeholders, help coordinate and network different partners and stakeholders that engage in public procurement in different forms. And then, of course, start creating some knowledge and promote the capacity building work across the globe. And in this context, just wanted to mention that there are a lot of professional associations, initiatives, they are already there globally that are looking at different aspects of procurement, and basically coordination and strengthening this partnership and synergies among them would be a big contribution that this proposal can make. And some of the longer term goals or the contribution that the CPP could facilitate is improve governance and standardization, as I mentioned before, and of course continuous knowledge and research to advance innovation and other cutting edge new technologies that are evolving. So how do we move to form a GPP that is responsive? So currently World Bank is undertaking several other initiatives. So the global stock take study for this GPP that we are undertaking right now is one of the initiatives and efforts that World Bank is currently pursuing. And I have listed some of these, and you'll hear from my colleague Hunt on the Global Public Procurement Database, which is a very important part of our work. And then we are doing some COVID-19 related work, and you know about open government partnership and several other initiatives that I mentioned earlier. So before going into the global stock take study, I just wanted to mention that this is one major activity that we are undertaking to inform this global procurement partnership. The other major one that the bank is currently also implementing is to put together a global flagship report on public procurement, and these two would be major kind of contributor and that will inform the GPP. So now I'll just focus briefly on the scope of StockTech study that we are implementing right now. So the three main areas that we are focusing on to actually looking at the state of global public procurement are first looking at procurement as a socio-economic development tool. And the second is procurement as a transactional business process. And then we're looking at the electronic and digital tools that are helping procurement and public procurement systems process across the country. These three are linked to each other in different ways, and these thematic areas are looking at different aspects of economy, efficiency, effectiveness, and equity in public procurement. So this StockTech study actually is not a case study of countries or going deep into detail of each of these topics, because public procurement is a pretty comprehensive area that connects actually several elements of public sector activities and service delivery and private sector engagement. So what we have tried to do in this StockTech review is to understand what's the trend, where do we stand with regards to public procurement globally. So it is very pragmatic. It does look at some country examples. And the most important part is that this study, which is in draft stage at this time, we will actually share among key stakeholders across the globe, and that is coming up. And that will be reviewing and commenting on the draft study, and also discuss about the potential of GPP, what areas are priorities, and things like that. So it's a very consultative process. And then finally, this study will look at the kind of needs and gaps that are necessary to address at this point to actually help this overarching goal of public procurement partnership forward. And then I'm not going to details into the StockTech study, but the end of the StockTech study will have a summary of findings of issues and topics that could actually inform the possible GPP agenda. And until now, based on our review and research so far, the areas that are kind of being identified can be grouped broadly in these three categories, and these are monitoring and measurement, capacity building, and procurement governance. I just wanted to focus on the some of the identified gap areas or challenges or issues in the third pillar of the StockTech study, which is the procurement, looking at procurement as a digital and electronic platform. In that area of our research, and of course Joe can share some updates on that. These are the three areas where there is a huge need and issues that could be addressed, and these are digital inclusiveness, digital transformation, and data governance, and of course the digital risk issues. So, and I have listed some of these kind of examples of digital electronic public procurement as we look at the review. And as I mentioned, this is in the process of kind of review, and we will get back to many of you to actually share your thoughts, comments, and ideas as we launch the consultative process very shortly. So these are some of the proposed expected timeline for the global procurement partnership. So right now, as I mentioned, we're doing the StockTech study. Then we'll have a series of stakeholder engagement and consultation activities. And then after that, we will incorporate the feedback and discussion for that we will receive from stakeholders and colleagues across the globe. And then we'll finalize the study. And then we'll start designing and developing the GPP And then we're expecting to launch this GPP sometime in 2021. So again, this will depend on the overall progress in other areas of our work, and also the global state of global affairs. So I will stop here, and would be happy to share any questions or as we move forward to the discussion. Over to you. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Masood. Thank you very much for getting up at the early hour in Eastern time zone to join us this morning. I don't know if we can show the results of the first poll question that was taken. So looks like more people had a chance to look at the Global Public Procurement database that's been launched, and more will probably now that they had a look at it. I don't know if we could also put up maybe the next two poll questions before Hunt gets presentation, as they will kind of lead in to what he's going to be talking about. And we'll just let these go through, because as Hunt will be explaining what the Global Public Procurement Resource Database is and can be provided for you. Anyway, we'll let move into Hunt now for a presentation on the database itself, and then as you go along, you could just pop up the poll questions throughout, and then we'll deal with the answers at the end. Okay, so take it away, Hunt. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I am currently going to share my screen. Here we go. Okay, well, thank you so much. And Masood, compliments on waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning on election results day in Washington, D.C. I know there's many events going on at the moment, but I can say that I know I'm very happy to be here, and I'm so happy that you were able to make your presentation. I have had the privilege of reviewing the Global Stop Taking report, and was very pleased with the report. It reads really well, and there are a number of really great insights in the report, and I would just like to compliment the authors and the organizers of that report. So welcome to the presentation on the Global Public Procurement Database, which is a core repository for public procurement data globally. We've been working on this for probably about 2 years. It did launch in spring on March 18th, 2020. So now we are about 6, maybe 7 months into the implementation. We have had over 4,500 distinct users of the system from around the world. So we're really happy about the use of the system, and do hope that our colleagues online and just take a look at the system in your own time. Today, we're going to go through a presentation, and we're also going to do a quick demo. Let's see, let me. We'll go through an overview and introduction. We'll talk about the World Bank's Global Public Procurement Database, which we call the GPPD, and then we'll do a quick demonstration. Today's discussions, we're going to talk about, the existing public procurement information gap that I think we're all aware of. Trying to find information about public procurement has always been challenging. And as the e-procurement global resource at the World Bank, and the ICT procurement resource, and the data analytics and disruptive technology resource, I constantly get bombarded with questions about information about public procurement. from colleagues and also from e-procurement and procurement practitioners throughout the world. We'll talk a little bit about the global public procurement characteristics, the database characteristics, that the trials and tribulations of the data collection, which is what we found to be probably definitely the most challenging part, our sustainability challenges, trying to keep that data up to date, and what our next steps are going to be. So why did we put this together? We put this together because there was no single place to find public procurement information on the internet. It was always a search to find information, either in public procurement websites or annual reports or e-procurement systems, or having to actually call up the representatives from the countries to get the information. So the idea was to strengthen public procurement, was to create a fair society based on transparency, equality, opportunity, and value for money, while at the same time having an efficient public procurement system that can greatly contribute to sustainable public finances. Public procurement reform programs cannot easily benefit from accumulated worldwide experience for eventually adopting the best practices. Since historically it's been difficult to locate country level public procurement information. It's also difficult to set a worldwide as is for research. And it's also can be challenging to compare country level setting and performance. So, and this is because there historically has been a lack of standardization on unstructured reporting. And if you go and look at annual reports for public procurement agencies throughout the world, there is no standard in what is presented within the information in the report. And it would be nice if we could somehow standardize that to get some kind of stability on that. Also, there's different terminologies. You know, the terminologies that are used in Africa are completely different than the terminologies that are used in Europe and Central Asia. And then also, there's a lot of different scope and functionalities of e-procurement systems. And I would challenge this group to redefine what e-procurement means moving forward, you know. So the mission of the GPPD is to have a web-based global public procurement database available to any interested individual or group. The project aims to promote public procurement reform through innovation, improve transparency and information sharing based on publicly available online database stored in country public procurement profiles across the world. So this database, we like to consider it as objective, meaning the data that we're putting in this database is already public information. It's not based off a survey of how somebody feels about a particular indicator. It's actually what the actual value of whatever that indicator is published already on the web or in an annual report or website. So the mission is to facilitate information sharing and growth through the public procurement community to enable shareholders to perform in a more efficient, effective, and consistent way based on international best practices. And the vision of the GPPD is to become a one-stop online point for practitioners, government officials, academics, NGOs, CSOs, and industry to access comparable public procurement data of countries across the globe. So we have some interesting features and components of the GPPD. We want to make it accessible, right? So it's publicly available, it's free, and is downloadable in common formats, JSON or Excel. The data characteristics, we are not storing transactional information in this database. We are storing macro data, which are completed across multiple data types. So Again, we're not storing e-procurement transaction information. We're storing macro data about country information on procurement. The data sources, primary data collection is from public procurement agencies via questionnaires. Data is also collected publicly from publicly available databases and also through desk research. The data is verified by the country representatives for use by parties to generate analysis. The country profiles allow users to access country-based procurement data. Authorized users, these are the country representatives from the public procurement agencies, can modify their profile of their country. And country profiles can be searched and retrieved through advanced search features. There's also a world map that you can browse and get a brief public procurement profile from each country. And there's also a document library where there is accessible documents and relevant reports and assessments about country public procurement. So putting together the initial set of indicators, we had what we called a technical advisory working group, which we worked with. We had folks from the Open Contracting Partnership, the African Development Bank, a number of colleagues from the World Bank throughout the various parts of the World Bank. And we put together these indicators, which we believe currently represents the information that is needed. Now, moving forward, we have lessons learned, and we're also interested in incorporating new indicators into the database. We also had a technology advisory group, information technology advisory group, of how to build the database. Initially, when we were just about coming up with the framework to build the database, blockchain was very hot. It's still pretty hot. And we thought that maybe indeed we could build this database using blockchain. And we worked with a number of experts in innovative technologies. One was a group at the World Bank, our internal group. We have a lab. We went through them. We also worked with other industry, folks in the industry, and other industry folks regarding the information technology use. And what we found is that indeed, as this is more of a macro data set and it's not a transactional data set, that a blockchain really wouldn't help as the data is coming from all these various sources. So in the end, we ended up using just traditional technology, a regular relational database, and a website to host this information. But we also looked for information on whether we could use disruptive technologies such as AI and machine learning and robotics processing automation to help in the sustainability and the data collection moving forward, and we'll get to that in a moment. So the data elements which we have in the Global Public Procurement Database, we have country information. This is country identifier and basic population and economic information from a country context. And this information, most of it comes from a World Bank API. This is population and currency and things like that, GDP. Then we have public procurement agency information and public procurement law. The primary source of most of the procurement data here, and the primary instrument used to determine and regulate public procurement policies in the market. We have e-procurement information, which is a key operational tool used for driving public procurement value, value for money, competition, and transparency. And then we have value for money and fair competition and transparency. And these indicators are used to measure and evaluate effectiveness and efficiency in country public procurement systems. And then we also have procurement cycle metrics, which are global indicators used to measure procurement efficiency. There are lots of different users of the GPPD. We have regulatory authorities, and they use the information in the GPPD to figure out how they can improve public procurement policies by comparing countries and getting an understanding of what international best practices are through the database. Also, buyers. Buyers. Do they need to buy how can they buy the right quantity at the right price and low administrative cost? Suppliers, how can they expand their business to other governments? If a particular supplier might be interested in expanding to Central Asia, looking at the GPPD, you could get an idea of the procurement metrics, which would give suppliers a good idea of maybe which country might be the most advantageous for expanding. Also, procurement specialists. I know a number of the colleagues online right now have used this database to obtain worldwide procurement information on potential procurement reforms. Also, the international financial institutions, which regions and countries could benefit from our investments in funding. So there are 128 countries and territories represented in the database. The country profile information, we have country information, procurement organizations, key procurement law and clauses, e-procurement systems outline, and core procurement indicators. We also have a document library where we have laws uploaded, e-procurement assessments, procurement organization assessments, audit reports, annual reports, and statistical reports. So there were three mechanisms for collecting the data. Existing World Bank databases, or APIs, which do an automated retrieval of core country information. Desk research, we had a team going around where qualitative information was collected from openly available trusted resources, such as Public Procurement AG websites, Ministry of Finance websites, annual reports. And we also had a large campaign to reach out to the country representatives of the public procurement agencies. And we'll go through that. It was a three-phased approach where we had an initial questionnaire that we sent to the country representatives, asking for public procurement organization information, procurement law information, e-procurement system information, and some basic indicators. When the representatives completed that, we would send them an enhanced questionnaire, which was our phase 2, to ask for specific procurement law clauses, e-procurement system features, and more elaborate performance indicators. And then this third phase, upon completion of the data collection process, country representatives were able to register in the GPPD. So these are actual registered users in the database. And as a registered user, and you have to be qualified, and we vet those users, they would validate their profile information prior to its publication. And moving forward, they would also help in the data collection for subsequent years. So the data collection per region. So approximately 30% of the requested data elements were provided across the regions. And you can see, if you take a look at East Asia and Pacifics, we have about 31% of the countries responding to the questionnaires. We were able to, we partnered with the Asian Development Bank in getting a lot of the information in there through desk research. But again, it is challenging to get a lot of the information through the questionnaires, and it was a large effort to do so. Also, so that was the countries. Now let's talk about the data that was collected per category. If you look at the 5 categories, as you can see, the first category, the country information, which came from World Bank APIs, there's a lot of information we got from there. That's categories 2 and 3, we also got a significant amount of information. And then as you can see, category 4 and 5, we didn't get as much information as we were hoping. But it does leave room for improvement. And here we can see information on each of the countries where the average and the maximum potential of getting the information. So you can see that some countries did provided much more information, or there was more information available through the websites. So one of the issues the steering committee, when this project was approved, came up with is how are we going to sustain the data? And it's definitely a challenge. There's no doubt about that. And we want to make sure that moving forward, we can keep the information in the database current. And so one of the things we did is we put together an idea of using technology or robotics processing automation to try to help. And we did do a number of approaches to try to see whether or not we could use that type of information or processing to be able to do that. And so I will go here. And what we did find is that AI requires standardized templates to be most effective. And so the issue we had is that most of the information in these annual reports were in PDF and format, which strips away the metadata associated with that. So the PDF to text does not produce meaningful results. Other issues we had is the tables that a lot of the information were in these annual reports were discolored. They had different strokes or backgrounds, colors, and they used different borders. So it was difficult to go and search for a particular indicator. And also the original text contained ambiguous tables or no headers. So that was also pretty challenging. And as you can see, the PDF table to text, the approach, how it can be very, very difficult. We even had our information technology group do a pilot to see, given a number of annual reports from various countries, whether it was possible to collect similar indicator information. And what we found is that it wasn't terribly reliable. Now, moving forward, hopefully there will be a little bit more standardization with these annual reports, and that will, and maybe in the future we could use such technology. So the key learnings from the using technologies to address sustainability. First of all, we had poor results achieved through natural language processing. It's limited to non-standard inputs and lack of natural language text. The maximum volume of data to be fetched through AI was minimal due to the number of countries publishing annual reports and the number of data elements that can be retrieved through the published annual reports. So the recommendations was to limit, moving forward, limit the frequency of the data updates. So instead of doing monthly or quarterly, we're going to be doing yearly. Decentralize the data updates, making sure that country representatives and authorized World Bank users can update this data, and then use standard data collection templates to facilitate AI. So that's something we're considering moving forward. Again, we have the core features. We have country profiles. We have a world map. We have the ability to compare country profiles, and we have a document library. And all of this information can be exported, the entire database in JSON format or in Excel, either each country profile or the entire, all the countries with all their information. This is an example of what the advanced search page looks like, and we'll demo that quickly. This is a quick look at the global or the world map. The archive I'll also demo that. It's a very useful feature for looking for information. And then this is what a particular country profile looks like with the various indicators. So the next steps. So we are collaborating with the European Union, the Asian Development Bank, African Development Bank on the next iteration of the GPPD. So that means starting the data collection for 2019 and 2020, and reviewing the indicators, the global public procurement indicators, 2 more sets of indicators which we're very interested in including are gender indicators and green indicators. So we've identified many of those indicators, and we'll be working with our technical group to identify which of those would be best. So please go ahead when you have the opportunity to view, go to the website and see what you can find out. Also, you know, we have a motto: share, compare, improve, and we look forward to you doing that. Type it. I'm just looking at the polls real quick. What type of information on public procurement interests you most? I have to say, for me, it's e-procurement systems. So what we'll do now is I'm going to quickly go to the public procurement database. Here it is. You can go to Global Public Procurement Data, and that will bring you there. You can go to a particular country profile, and I'm going to go to Moldova. And here you have the country profile. You can hide all, and you can see the various categories, or you can view all. And here we have all the country information. Then we have the public procurement agency and law, procurement law information. And countries can put in more than one public procurement agency. If there's a central procurement body, they can do that. Then there's all the information about where in their public procurement law are various components of procurement. For example, value for money, life cycle costing, total cost of ownership, bid validity period for goods, awards, regulation clauses. Then here's our e-procurement system. Countries can put in up to 5 e-procurement systems into the database. Then you have your value for money and fair competition and transparency information in here, and then links to annual reports, and then cycle matrix, and then public comments about any of the data. Now, where is this information gathered from? From these resources right here. These are links to the Public Procurement Agency, to the law, to the e-procurement system, the annual reports, the procurement statistics, and the world development indicators. So you can do an advanced search. One of the advanced searches I like to do is to see which countries publish their information in OCDS compliant format. And for example, here we can see that, let's go to Georgia. Here we have Georgia, so we can go click onto Georgia, and we can take a look at, here is their OCDS compliant data. You can click on it, and here you have the website where their OCDS compliant data is. Very useful. Here's the world map where you can, I always like to go into Central Asia because it's this area here. There's a lot going on, and you can click on a particular country and get an idea of some of the data associated with it. From here, you can click on the country profile and go to that particular country. Tajikistan. The other thing that's very useful, I find, is that for country comparison information, we can add various countries in here to get an idea. Maybe we're interested in taking a look at, I'm going to put in, so here we have 3 countries, and let's put Uzbekistan in there too, from Central Asia, and you can get an idea side by side of the various indicators, right? Is there's a central purchasing body, you know, the names of the relevant ministries, the central purchasing body website, the links to the laws, and then we have some countries didn't fill out the law information, but other countries did. Information about their e-procurement modules, and many other information about their procurement goods, works, and services value and number. So it's very useful here. You can even do this if you want by region, if you wanted to take a look at just East Asia Pacific. And I'm going to do that. Let's clear. So one thing you can also do is you can down listen to a spreadsheet if you'd like. I'm going to clear this, and I'm going to put East Asia Pacific in here. And here you can see all the information for all of the countries in the region, based on by country and by indicator. Then we have a document library, which is very interesting. One of the things that we've been doing during COVID is to get an idea of is how procurement laws, let's see, for various countries are implemented. So here we can look for legislation, and we'll search for emergency in the legislation, and you can get an idea of where in each of the countries you have the word emergency in the public procurement law. And you could filter even further down if you wanted. I'll do another search here, annual reports and contract.
Just as you're going along, there was a question, is whether the data policies analyze or identifies any inefficiencies or deficiencies in the public procurement laws or regulations that might have been posted.
No, it doesn't. There is no scoring or rating associated with the public procurement database. It's just objective information. So the idea is that you go to that information and be able to go find it, and then based off that information, you would be able to ascertain your own analysis of the public procurement law in question.
Thank you.
Okay. So with that, I am done with the presentation. I want to thank you for your patience, and I look forward to the question and answer session. Thank you.
Thank you, Hunt. It was very informative. Now, I think we still had some more poll questions to pop up, but we want to show them as we go along, because they'll help us as we kind of answer things in our panel discussions. So we'll see those pop. I don't know if we can show the results of the that was done, but run through these polls as we go into our panel discussion. Let's see. Anyway, why those are about to come along. I guess like one of the big things, especially as it relates to the global database, is like on part of those next steps, it's going to be keeping the information up to date, and growing it, and what other indicators may be included or not. Would you be looking, like members of this audience that may want to be a country representative, to get in touch with you on any of that, to be like a representative?
That's Joe, that's a great question. In fact, yes, indeed, country representatives from public procurement agencies are welcome to contact me about the current information represented in the public procurement database associated with the indicators for their country. And moving forward, we would definitely welcome their ownership of the data, right? Many of them do. 33% of the countries in the GPPD have representatives, authorized users in the database, and they do maintain their data. And for those that don't, we certainly would welcome your participation. You're welcome to reach out to me, and we can work on doing that. That would be great.
Okay. Hopefully you'll start hearing from some people. The other question that just came in is the GPP data tied to what the World Bank is doing under its DIME impact evaluation related work?
So that's a great question. We would consider there's a number of initiatives going on at the World Bank. So we do have we have a lot of work that's being done in DIME and DEC and within the global unit on procurement analytics. And many times that particular work is associated with a client, let's say Paraguay or Thailand or the Philippines or Indonesia, where a team goes in to work with the client. They download or they agree upon which data is going to be, e-procurement data is going to be analyzed, which data is going to be analyzed from the country. Generally, it comes from an e-procurement system in that country, and then they agree upon what type of analytics will be generated. Now that is different than the GPPD, right? The GPPD is more about, you know, overall macro information. These country analytics that happen on a country by country basis, and they work with the team. So that's a little bit different. But although there is also the Doing Business report that does come out on a yearly basis, that has information on public procurement. That information is a bit different than the information we have in the GPPD. That information is based off of surveys, and it's for one type of procurement transaction, which is the resurfacing of roads from one city to another in a country. And that again is it's based off a survey, and it's a bit subjective, where in the GPPD we consider the data much more objective. It's data that's actually published by the public procurement agencies and publicly available. Thank you.
Yeah, because I could see that type of information being of great interest, like for what's going on, what people are paying in one country to another, and so forth. Much like what the previous presentation with some of the open data, especially in the time of a pandemic, you know, price spikes on various goods and so forth. And like even on the open data, you link into which countries are have open data, but will there be any work, whether it's under the Global Partnership Initiative, Masood, or the database, to help it make it easier to get where the spikes, that if I'm stuck on an emergency, or where the vetted suppliers might be to gain from any of these databases?
Masood, do you want to take that?
You can go ahead, maybe I can add.
Okay. Joe, do you mind just paraphrasing that question? I didn't understand the entire question.
It'd be like, there's going to be a lot of interest from different, whether I'm a procuring officer as well as vendors, global pricing on various commodities, and like where you're doing your DIME, like specific packages between countries. It's the same, especially like in COVID, there's people, where do I get stuff, and then what should I be paying? Like right now, the database isn't going to tell me that, but I'd have to go search every country to go figure out what they might be paying or not paying. But that would be a topic or area of interest, I would think.
Yeah, you know, I think you're talking about the dream.
Yeah.
And the dream
I'm a
that
dreamer.
we have, the dreamer, which is great. And that, you know, we talked about the dream quite a bit when we were building this database. And the dream is that every eGP system publish their data in OCDS format.
Yeah.
And that all the indicators in the global public procurement database were generated from all the ODS data. Now that's going to be a while before that happens, but that would be the ideal situation, where we would where there would be a a database available online that does hold all the public procurement transactions throughout the world, where you could really do that type of analysis. So at the moment, what we're doing is we're grabbing the information that we can. I would consider this kind of a stepping stone to one day in the future having that kind of availability of data and access of data. Currently it's still a manual process to get there. Maybe 5-10 years, we might be able to envision, this global platform where everything is published in this standard data standard, and there could be a lot of analytics. I mean, we've seen a lot of analytics from the previous session based on OCDS information. Thank you.
Yeah, in a given country context, and that's like, it helps highlight the people to, think about the information you're collecting and publishing, because that will help give the answers going forward. Masood, for your activities on the global partnership and the stock taking, I know like the report will be coming out soon, and that we had a lot of challenges even to identify which countries to look at, what
Did we just lose Joe?
It looks like
Yeah, I cannot hear him either.
he might have frozen. Now it's.
I might have frozen. It is -2.
Yeah, Joe, we missed you. Yeah.
He does live in Canada.
It is -2. and 5 in the morning, so I am dreaming. haven't been to bed yet. So anyway,
one more time the question.
Try again. Masood, just for the stock taking initiatives, where we had a number of challenges identifying countries or selecting countries and topics to look at. How do you see the initiative for the stock taking and global partnership moving forward?
As I mentioned, thanks again for this good question. As I mentioned that the global stock take study, as you know, Joe, as during last several months, we're working on it. It's a massive area of kind of exploration, because public procurement has so many elements as the landscape is changing, with the technology, with public procurement linking to, different other development aspects of countries. So as mentioned, right now we are doing the stock take study. The stock take study will provide some idea and trend that is happening in the field of public procurement along those 3 areas that I mentioned, but there are so many other topics that we did not really go deep into. And after the consultation and getting feedback from stakeholders from across the countries, we hope that the prioritization and the areas that we should focus on for future work, as the GPP hopefully will be launched next year. So that's how I will look at it. We are hopeful that we'll have good input and feedback as we move forward through the consultation process, and we'll get back to many of you in due course of time. Thank you.
Yeah, not that I would want to lobby for additional work in the new year, but I think like the whole COVID and how emergency purchases were handled, like research and studies and papers, what went well in one place and not as well as another would probably be a very interesting. We got a couple more. Do you want to also put up the next poll question too, as we? Let's see what. It's another Q&A. It looks like.
So Joe, it's nice when you read the actual question for the poll for those.
Okay, but it disappeared from my screen, I think. Let me just see.
So,
Yeah, the poll up. The other type of indicators to be included in the GPP database is gender, green, or jobs. What would be of interest to our audience here?
so I see that there's another question by
Yeah.
H. Tiwana. How is or can the GPD get procurement agencies to provide more meaningful and robust inputs for key performance and cycle metrics? Would the proposed GPP be a good medium to facilitate the collation and analytics of this type of type of monitoring and actual performance data, but without getting into the politics of benchmarking among countries? I think that's a great question. You know, one of the things that we wanted for the GPPD is we didn't want to do any scoring. We didn't want to do any rating because we felt it was much we wanted to be much more objective and just provide the data for folks to be able to make their own assessment and to be able to compare countries. But it might be a good idea to, Masood, what are your thoughts about using the GPP as a medium to facilitate the collation and analytics moving forward? And also, was the GPPD used at all in creating the stock taking report?
Yeah, thanks, Art. That's a very good question. Yes, with regards to facilitation of knowledge sharing, as I mentioned, one of the proposed key objectives of GPP, the Global Procurement Partnership, would be to kind of facilitate, coordinate, collaborate among stakeholders across the globe on different knowledge and information. That includes, of course, a big part, data as the trend evolves with technology integrated to support procurement process in different ways in different countries. With regards to the second part of the question, I think Joe can perhaps reflect a little bit on that because Joe led the third pillar of the StockTech study on digital and electronic procurement aspects of our work in the study. So Joe, you want to reflect on the question that Hunt had, how much we looked at the GPPD? I know that we looked at it, and so Joe, over to you.
Yeah, like we did make use of the GPPD, get initial information, and then take additional research on a country-by-country basis. But I think, again, the stock taking or future reports that would come out of that would help kind of take information from the GPPD plus the ongoing research for specific countries, and then to try and kind of identify challenges, good practices as good practices that may be applied to help show people different approaches for improving their own public procurement spheres. Because like we were looking, I know, from impacts and outcomes, which is going to help in achieving the best. And so that's where the ongoing research can help identify those aspects of it. There was also another couple of questions in here too.
Yeah, I'm taking a look at the from Carla on the GPPD. Yeah. Do you have a section where you can check the other countries' policies and practices about debarment blacklisting and sanctions to bidders and suppliers? And I was just looking through the public procurement law section, and in fact, I didn't see it in there. There's complaint resolution period clause. There's standstill period information. But I don't see the debarment and sanctions for the bidders and suppliers. So that could be something we could definitely add. Carla, very very good suggestion there. Thank you.
And there was another question just before that one too, Hunt, for the government Madagascar. And their bottleneck is on procurement at the first 20% of steps. Without looking at trends, countries should report key performance indicators based on standardized steps of procurement. So I expect that is the database holding what steps are being applied in the process.
Right. The main bottlenecks on the procurement at the first 20% of I suppose those are the process steps.
Yeah.
Right. And the country should report key performance indicators based on standardized steps of the government. Yeah, that's an excellent idea. And the idea, right, so the idea would be by incorporating your value for money, fair competition, and transparency indicators, that would help to provide information on those bottlenecks and be able to compare the information in your country to maybe neighbor countries or countries of the similar population and similar public procurement laws to yours.
Okay. Here's the last one of the poll results, like public procurement agencies and procurement authorities, like what seems to be, like what are the use cases that would fit the GPPB needs? Like
right, the
public procurement variations, yeah.
Yep, that's a great question. In fact, as part of the, before we were actually able to build the public procurement database, we actually needed to get, we had to write a feasibility report, which was reviewed by the steering committee before we were fully funded. And as part of that feasibility study, we put together a number of use cases associated with the public procurement database. And so, for example, we have a use case for public procurement agencies and public procurement authorities of Moldova. This is an example, is embarking on a plan of procurement reform and is seeking out international best practices on procurement laws and regulations. So they could use the GPPD functionalities. They could look at the links to the public procurement laws and regulations for other countries. They could look at indications on which type of best practices are incorporated into the public procurement processes, such as best value for money and sustainability. And they can also compare procurement cycle standards and matrix and of the indicators. Another, there's a number of indicators that, use case scenarios that were defined. Another one that's pretty interesting is, let's see here, for business councils and chambers of Congress. This particular use case was the U.S. Qatar Business Council is a commercial entity responsible for interesting trade between the United States and Qatar. Specifically, the U.S. QBC, the Qatar Business Council, is looking to increase trade outside of trade sectors of oil and gas and industry between the U.S. and Qatar, and would like to know how it compares to other Gulf cooperation councils in the country. So the Qatar Business Council could go to the GPPD and it could link again to public procurement laws and regulations from other countries for a comparative analysis. And then also there could be indications on which type of best practices are incorporated into the procurement process for that comparative analysis. They could also see the market size for the other countries in that market when it comes to public procurement expenditure. And they could see the development of the e-procurement technologies for those countries. Obviously, if those countries have e-procurement systems with a rich set of features, that would be more advantageous for business council and chambers of commerce to embrace.
Okay. Well, we're close to the end of our session here today. And so I'd really like to thank Hunt and Masood for joining us for this. And I hope everybody was able to get some information from that, and hope you have a chance to go visit the Global Public Procurement website to see what information you have there, and that we can follow up in a upcoming conference in the new year with when the stock taking studies are released, and with more information to share. Thank you very much. Back to you, Rob.
All right, having a little issue here with my screen and the lighting, but here we go. Okay. So first of all, I just want to thank all of you for a great conversation on that final topic of the day. So Joe, Hunt, and Masood, thank you so much for all of that. This is the end of day 2 of our 3-day event. So first of all, I'd like to thank all of our speakers and moderators today for giving us their time and all of their great insights and sharing so much awesome information and research and work that you've been working on for so long now, but sharing it with our community here over the course of the 3 sessions that we've had today. We also like to thank all of our participants. You've submitted great comments in the chat, great questions in the Q&A, and that's what makes for a great panel. And so we definitely thank you for all of that. Tomorrow, we are going to pick up with our first session, which will be focused on digital security in a work-from-home world. So very timely topic, as with most of the topics in this conference, but this one incredibly timely for all of us, as here we are at home with some of our technical difficulties, making things work so that we can still put on a great show for everybody and share all of this great information. Our first session will commence at 1:30 p.m. Manila local time, so be mindful of that. You can find the agenda. I will post it again in the chat. I've posted it a couple of times, but it will be in there again. Perhaps somebody from the team can post that for me. And you will be able to rejoin us on this same exact Zoom link. So you'll be able to find us here. So we look forward to your participation tomorrow. Enjoy your evening, night, rest of the day, wherever it is that you might be joining us from. Joe, it's time to get to bed, I think. So thank you so much, everybody, for your time and for your great efforts today. We really appreciate it, and we will see you tomorrow.
Thanks, everybody. All the best.